This time we try to solve an equation where we have either two operations or we have more complex steps. In part 1, we solved equations like this. In part 2, we solved equations like this. And we did the same for those in part 2. So, let's take things one step further. Okay, how many operations do you see? Well, let's write BIDMAS down and start to count them through. There's multiplied by 2, there's a subtraction, and there's a divide. Now, if we follow the order of BIDMAS, then it will be divide, multiply, and subtract. And we will then reverse those processes. Is that the case in this question? Or have we misunderstood how to do this? Well, let's go through these again. We've had a multiply, a subtract, and a divide. My question for you is, when was the divide carried out? Look closely at the fraction. 2x, take away 3, and then all of that divided by 5. So when was the divide done? Well, it was done at the end. So, when I come to order my terms, I need to be careful now. There are 3 of them, and the divide is the end. Because everything is divided. Now, let's just look at the numerator then, and work out the order of operations here. Well, these two are still multiply and subtract. So that gives me my order for my operations. So first off, I'm going to multiply. When I multiply this side, I get 10. When I multiply this side, the divided by 5 is gone, cancelled out. So I'm left with just what was on the numerator. Now it's time to add. What do I need to add? That's right. I'm going to add 3. So that becomes 13, and the subtract 3, or minus 3, is gone. So I'm just left with 2x. The last step is to divide, which will take me back to my x, and in this case will give me 6.5 or 6.5. The important part of this question is the first step to here. And a reminder that because everything on the numerator was divided by 5, the divided by 5 was the last operation that was done. Let's look at another similar looking equation where the divided by 5 was not the last operation done. I'm sure you can see that this looks a bit similar, but it's definitely different. So, let's look at the order of operations and see if we can work out how it's different. So, is everything divided by 5? No. So we don't have to put the divide at the end. So let's go through our bit maths and just follow it and see where it takes us. X has been multiplied by 2. It's been divided by 5. Someone has subtracted 3. Now, doesn't matter which order we do the divide and the multiply. I'm going to write the divide first. No. Do you know what? We'll have a think on that in a second. But I know the last thing I have to do was the subtract, so to reverse it is the add. So I'm going to add 3 to cancel out subtract 3. Now, this is the stage previously where we would deal with this divided by 5. Because, in general, we try and avoid having fractions in equations. So that means I'm going to multiply next. So I multiply by 5. Cancels out the divide by 5. My last operation then is to divide by 2. Here my answer is a fraction again. I've done that deliberately to remind you that fractions are part of what we can get as answers. We haven't had an answer yet which is a negative, and we haven't had any really tricky fractions. We've just dealt with halves or dividing by 2. That's going to change later on. So it's important you look here and check the order of operations. Writing your bid maths down is good, but you need to look out for if everything is divided by something or everything is multiplied by something. That will change the order of operations. When I say everything is divided by something, you've seen that here. If I say everything is multiplied by something, and that changes the order, I mean the following. So here is an expression, which I'll say is equal to 14, but I'm going to say everything here is multiplied by something. Now to show that, I'm going to draw a bracket. You'll need to watch the video on brackets and then expanding and factorising to help you with this. We'll tackle it on the next video, but this has everything multiplied by 3, just like this had everything divided by 5. And so it changes the order that we need to reverse the steps in. In our next video, we will tackle this kind of problem and we'll tackle more 3-part problems.